So we should be live. We are trying out the different software, so bear with us today. It might be a bit different, but welcome to the Daily Objective. Today we're going to be discussing a little bit of the recent interview made. It's actually, I believe, the first interview of Yoav Gallant since he was. Did he resign? I think I'm not sure if he resigned or
I think he was fired.
uh, what I was thinking, maybe he was like encouraged to resign. I don't exactly remember sort of which way it went, but basically, who's no longer the defense minister, and now he sort of spoke out. He talked about many different things, which we'll try to cover a little bit today. Joining me today is Alex, and yeah, Alex, what do you make just generally of the whole interview? I wasn't able. It was done on Channel 12. It was conducted in
Hmm.
Hebrew. Wasn't able to
Hmm.
find the full thing, so for the most part, I just have transcripts and sort of some of the quotations. So we'll go through that. But Alex, what do you make of it?
Well, it's a whole load of like, shoulda, woulda, coulda. It's kind of, you were the defense minister. You had the authority, to do whatever, not whatever you like, but you had a lot of power, a lot of sway. Now, all of a sudden, it's like, oh, I was held back. I was held back from doing what I really wanted to do. And the mean Americans, it's very whiny. And it's a real shame because, Yoav Gallant's like, he's ended in such a tabloid kind of way.
Yeah, so let's cover some of the things he has said. So I think one of the biggest sort of people, some of the biggest things people are taking away from the interview is he said that Israel has missed the greatest opportunity security-wise since its founding. Basically, what he was talking about is attacking Hezbollah. Uh, I'm not sure if specifically on October 7th, but sort of like very soon, basically as soon as possible. I think October 11th was the date. He was basically saying, hey, Hezbollah, the only reason why Hezbollah exists is to attack Israel. They have been getting ready for it, and they will do it when they get a chance. They were supposed to, I'm not sure if specifically we knew about this immediately, but they were supposed to join Hamas on October 7th. The one of the supposed reasons that they didn't is because America, I think, sent an aircraft carrier close to Hezbollah, basically saying if you try anything, we might get involved, and sort of Hezbollah sort of put off attacking Israel until a little bit later. But yeah, so Gallant was arguing for attacking Hezbollah, but at least from what he said, pretty much when they tried discussing that with United States, there was a pretty much resounding no, you're not gonna do that, and that idea sort of died immediately there. Yoav Gallant tried to bring it up to Netanyahu, basically saying we have to, there is no other choice, but it didn't really go anywhere. So I mean, Alex, well, I'll just bring in one more thing. It's sort of whenever we discuss this, it's sort of, you sometimes you wanna put blame on like one person on
Hmm.
like a bunch of different, yeah, basically just it's this problem. Like United States sort of disallowing Israel to do it is a problem, but at the end of the day, Yoav Gallant is the defense minister. Netanyahu is the prime minister. Like we cannot always sort of say, well, it's United States. I mean, are you a sovereign country at some point? My question is, but what do you make of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like it's very, very easy now for Yoav Gallant because to say these things because I don't think he's not in the hot seat anymore. He appeared to act very, very differently when it was him sending the responsibility really of tens of thousands of Israelis and you know basically being the person who's above the chief of staff of the army. So when he had that kind of those options in front of him, when he had the power, he was very reserved. So, but it kind of, I almost think at this point, it really doesn't. It really doesn't until the realization really sinks in with the Israeli people. I don't think we're going to see really a very decisive victory or a decisive war, because I think that we've forgotten what it takes. I mean, that's, I was even kind of mentioning to you before that if you think about the pager incidents, right? That this is something that we think of as being like, wow, this is like our kind of our trick, our party trick, right? And it is, it's a nice party trick, okay? But if you don't follow it up with a siege and an artillery bombardment and an invasion, then, what exactly was the point of it? It really is just a party trick. Do people think that we won the 6-day war with a couple of nice little cute tricks, or did we win it through overwhelming force and destroying the Egyptian, the whole of the Egyptian air force in like an hour, right? That was quite a trick. So and that's kind of the problem I was saying, that with the fact that all of our kind of defense establishment and prime ministers, they all come from special operations. So they always, for them, a victory is like, leaving the operation alive, or, the victory is the sabotage that they managed to do, right? That they managed to achieve, which I don't want to poo poo, right? It's incredible, absolutely insane, amazing, wonderful, brave. But yeah, that's not really, just not war.
Yeah, something that has had me like really worried about this whole situation is, as you said, sort of the way the establishment, or whatever you want to call it, or generally even Israelis think about this. I mean, even when Yoav Galant says things like, "We should have attacked Hezbollah on October 11. We should
Mhm.
have basically bombed the hell out of Gaza. We should have." I'm not sure if he specifically said we should have put a siege on Gaza, but basically being sort of,
Well,
let's
yeah, he
say,
did actually. He
yeah, yeah.
did.
So he did say,
Yeah.
uh,
Duh.
uh, but
At least he knows that.
yeah, but also he was the one who was pushing the deal, the April deal. He was pushing for it. He was basically saying, "Okay, we've already achieved
Mhm.
everything, and now we need to make a deal." And yeah, it's that sort of thinking. Like, yeah, we just go in and we do a bunch of stuff, and then we're sort of done. We get some of our
Mhm.
hostages back, but really there needs to be
Yeah.
something more. Like, it keeps happening again and again that Israel gets involved in a war. It's
Mhm.
in some cases it's done better, it's done worse. They manage to achieve something. I mean, it's never a question of like Israeli
Well,
strength. Like, it's never
yeah.
as if Israel is not capable of like doing these things. It's always
Hmm.
uh it's almost always that Israel is simply not doing this.
Yeah,
But
that's
yeah,
the
I would
whole
say,
point. Like, what is the purpose of the war, right? What is the purpose of the war? Is it to annoy our enemies? Is it to frustrate the people who are trying to kill us? Is it to exasperate them? Is it to drain them financially? What's the purpose of the war? Is the purpose of the war to defeat them, to defeat our enemies, not to deter them, to destroy them, right? And I think that, I don't think that that really has been made a fundamental principle of any war that we've fought for the past 40 years. That, no, we're going to destroy this enemy, that destroy those who seek to destroy us through the use of overwhelming force, unleash the military onto them, you know? Instead, it's like this. But, I have to admit that I do feel pretty sorry for Yoav Galant, because I can only imagine what it's like to be in that government with the level of indecision and the level of like uncertainty and the lack of direction, that you have, the lack of kind of leadership direction and the chaotic nature. I do feel very sorry for him in many ways. I think he's the wrong guy for the job, but just imagine all the you're not told what the purpose of this is. At one point, I think that the chief of staff was kind of saying to Bibi, like, what do you want us to do here? Do you want us to have a military occupation? Is that what you want, like Iraq? Or do you want us to do policing? Or do you want us to hand it over? What do you want us to do? Just tell us what you want us to do. And I'm sure that he experienced that lack of decision making, that real lack of leadership, that appears to really be quite ingrained at the top.
yeah, I mean, one of the biggest sort of things that Yoav Galant always had a problem with Netanyahu, and we've always heard about it, and it's something that I sort of I could agree with him on, is the fact that there was no post war plan for Gaza. And in some cases, there still isn't. We still pretty much, Netanyahu has never said basically what will be done with Gaza after the war. Now, at some cases, he said what will not happen, basically saying,
Hmm.
well, we won't get out of the border between Egypt and Gaza. We
Hmm.
won't get out of specific crossings, but many of those have pretty much fallen through. And
Yeah.
again, now we are at the point where Trump had to come in and sort of just shoot out a plan or a possible plan for Gaza, and Netanyahu is like, yeah, sure, yeah, we can do that. And again, is
Yeah.
this like, what kind of like prime minister is this that he never said what are we gonna do after that? I mean,
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
I don't know if you can really necessarily know what you're going to do until you get there. You know what I mean? Like, if the plan is to defeat Hamas, until you defeat Hamas, I'm not really sure that you can decide what the next phase is. So,
well,
it's a little bit, yeah.
I'll just quickly jump in on that because I think I think it matters in terms of how you conduct a war. Like, if you plan to stay there, I think you conduct the war a bit differently than if you just
Hmm.
go in to destroy some things and then you're planning to
Infrastructure,
get
yeah.
out. So that's my
Mhm.
sort of like biggest problem. Like, if we have
Well,
no idea what it's even gonna happen, I mean, what are we really doing there, right?
well, it's a little bit like, is the war against buildings, right? Are we fighting an architectural war? No, we're fighting a war against individuals, against people. Okay, an evil organization with evil people who do evil things. So we're not fighting a war against their buildings. So, but I really don't know what Yoav Galant wants from this. I'm glad that he has a chance to clear his chest and try to kind of, I don't know, improve his name or go into politics or whatever it is that he's planning on doing. It's just really,
Yeah,
like, talk about being a Monday morning quarterback, like, you haven't been there for the past few months. You're not in the, it's, I don't know. It's very frustrating actually to see him. I would have done everything so much better and I would have been so much more forceful and stronger, and I just couldn't do it. Couldn't, just little old me. I don't, little old Yoav Galant. I don't have any power. Really? Okay. So it's
yeah,
pretty it's pretty crazy that he would even, go down that route.
yeah. We'll go a bit later, sort of what his plans
Hmm.
are. There was something else I wanted to bring
Yeah, Dresden,
up.
definitely. You do Dresden, no problem, right? I have no problem with Dresden.
Oh yeah,
None at all.
something that before uh, you sent me one interview which I want to mention something different about it. Basically, there was a IDF spokesperson, and someone was asking him about if there is like a humanitarian crisis in Gaza, and sort of he was like nailing that point, like, just answer. Is there a humanitarian crisis in Gaza? Is that the problem there? And when I'm listening to it, it's like, so there is a terrorist organization that on October 7th
Hmm.
decided to invade a nation, kill more than 1,000 people, take hundreds of people hostages, and now the only question we are asking is, if are we being too mean when we try to
No, we're being
attack them?
meanie weenies. We're
Yeah,
just being mean. Oh, you know what else really bothers me? I'm sorry, but I have to say it.
no,
The
go.
people. Sorry, go ahead,
No,
Daniel.
no,
I
no,
just
go on,
remember
go on.
something that really frustrates. No, no, please. I interrupted you. I
uh, I,
feel.
I was pretty much saying, like, what do you even do at that point when when like the culture is so sort of
Mhm,
corrupted, is so pretty much devoid of any idea of how a war is fought, or how do you even,
mhm.
what is a proper way of like understanding what the war is about? If you take it as like they take it as like a bank robbery like situation, like we have a bunch of these guys, bank robbers, who like took Palestinians and hostages, and now we have to like sort of figure out how we get into the building without killing Palestinians, which we consider the hostages in this scenario. It's like there
Shit.
is no even talking, uh, like whenever I see any sort of idea spokesperson, even like having to answer question to like journalists, it's like you're not even asking like questions that should be
Mhm,
asked here. It's like, what are we even talking about? uh
mm.
but yeah, what did you want to bring up?
it's also just this thing with the journalists keep on going, why they're using 2,000-pound bombs in the middle of the city, they're using 2,000-pound bombs in Gaza. It's like, yeah, you want, if you're in a big air, I would much rather there was a 2,000-pound bomb that landed right next to me rather than just a dumb bomb. Because what is a people don't seem to realize, what do you think a 2,000-pound bomb does? Okay, 2,000-pound bomb, it basically is supposed to penetrate very deep into the ground, and then it has a delayed explosion. So it's a very controlled explosion that happens underground. Okay, it's a much better scenario for you to have a 2,000-pound bomb land next to you than just a regular, RPG. Okay, that you're not going to have any chance basically of surviving, right? Of a grenade landing in your kitchen. And it's just, I hate this kind of is. Even the fact that you would say that as well to a military person is very frustrating, because it's like, oh, do you think the munitions that we use as the military are wrong? Any other comments, any other suggestions? Maybe we should send them some flowers, or maybe we should sing them songs. I mean, I really think it's even a problem that the IDF is going out there, and their duty as the IDF spokespeople is to explain to us in Hebrew the situation that is occurring on the ground, right? They need to convey that message to us. Bugger the international press. You don't need to let them micromanage and nitpick our war. We'll fight it, thank you very much, on our own. We don't need your contributions, thank you. And also, like, I just don't know where you get the guts to really ask these absolutely asinine questions, to these people. Oh my God, they went in there with bulldozers. Duh. Like, you're going to have to destroy infrastructure. What do you think the purpose of a bomb is? What's the purpose? Right? Is it to be mean? Is it what's the purpose? It's to destroy the enemy's ability to wage war against you. That can be destroying them financially. Okay, that can be going after as well their morality, right? Going after their moral purpose to fight. That's destroying the buildings. Okay, destroying their monuments. Okay, to their martyrs. That's also part of it. You absolutely need to destroy that kind of infrastructure. Why? Because you want them to surrender.
So someone is asking, ever heard of proportionality? This is proportional. Yep. Hamas has started the war, and we respond in kind. That's what it means. When you start the war, you fight it, and even when
that's not even what proportionality means. Proportionality means is that, okay, I want to kill Daniel because Daniel is the head of an international terrorist organization, a very, very important one.
That's mine.
But unfortunately, Daniel is at home with his wife and kids, his 2 wives and his 7 children. You have to decide whether him as the target, killing all of those additional people in his building, if that is proportional to the target. If Daniel is a very important terrorist, then yes, go for it. Absolutely. But they would say, in order to do you demolish an entire building of people because they're smelly?
Yeah, or there is there might be some like low-ranking terrorists there, like. But again, nobody cares. Nobody cares about the actual application of international law. Like it's only because it's usually because now you can use it against Israel, so we're gonna use it against Israel. But it's like nobody cares about the actual application, because again, we could go into it like. International law has obligations on both sides. Hamas is supposed to not put like Hamas shouldn't have like military infrastructure.
Oh my God, Daniel, that's crazy. So next time Hamas come to where I live, I didn't know I could do this. I'll just tell them. I'll just explain that when they come with their RPGs and they come with their homemade bombs. I'll just explain. Guys, listen. I don't know if you know this, but this is against international law, and I'm sure they're just going to back away. I didn't know that we could do that. Wow, this is going to save us a lot of, time and efforts and deaths.
And again, that would also suppose that the idea of international law has any merit, which I think on the face of it, it's bogus, because again, it supposes some sort of like civility on both sides, or some sort of civilization on both sides, which again, civilized countries don't go to war with each other. You don't have wars
Exactly.
between countries that have respect for individual rights, that would
Hmm.
in theory respect the idea of international law. So you always have either both sides who don't give a shit about international law, or one side who
Hmm.
tries to comply by it, or tries to be at least somewhat and usually not even from international law, usually from its own sort of domestic laws, or domestic sort of like rules of engagement. But again, the other country usually, as I've said, doesn't give a shit about it. But
Yeah, I mean, the second line of the Hamas constitution is like, let's fuck up all the Jews, right? So yeah, so that's their laws. That's the laws of their country. All right, we've got the laws of ours.
Someone else brought it up, and I'll just mention it just so we can cover it in this interview. And I haven't been able to find a full context clip, but I've only seen a bunch of like people from like Electronic Intifada cutting it out and then like
Yeah.
slicing it exactly when it like ends. So I have no idea
Yeah.
about the full context. But apparently, Yoav Gallant has mentioned Hannibal directive during the interview. He said something along the lines, it might have been used in some places, it might have been not used in some
Hmm.
other places. Super vague. Again, just for those who don't know, Hannibal directive is basically, I don't believe it's actually in the use right now, but basically it's the
It
idea.
was. I think it was. Yeah.
But yeah, it was like the
Okay, but
fact
like
that
you
it,
have to understand also the context, right? So when an IDF soldier starts his basic training, right, if he's going to be, a fighter, right, somebody who's going to be, doing a physical, dangerous war type job, okay, they
Wait,
do 9 months.
sorry, I have to jump in. Someone
Sorry.
says 2017 Hamas chapter says enemy is Zionism, not Jews. So good
Okay,
for that.
good. All right, fine. I'll make sure to tell them next time they come around that yeah, I'm not I know that
No
you guys
Zion.
aren't anti-Semitic, God forbid. I wouldn't want to accuse them of something like that. Of course not. They
But
just
sorry,
hate Zionists.
yeah, sorry, jumped in. Sorry, Hannibal directive. Can you just explain sort of like the
Yeah,
basic
I
idea?
mean, okay, so part of there's a lot of different units in the IDF, right? And if your physical profile is above what they call F7, which is like you have a high military profile, as in you can basically be a warrior, right, or fighter. And of course, there's different levels to that. Of course, you have your special forces, your commandos, your whatever. Okay, but just your regular soldiers who are going to be, infantry in Gaza, they'll do like 9 months of training, and then the rest of the time they'll basically be like at war. And part of the training, uh, they plan. Okay, so it'll be like a scenario like this. Okay, so I'll be the commander, right? You'll be the terrorist, and we have to, there'll be a scenario whereby there's been footprints found in the base. Okay, and now we have to track down the person whose shoes that belongs to, find him, kill him, and so they'll put like a whole load of scenarios like this, and I do know as part of basically, war games, I suppose, that they would do in the past is, what do you do if a soldier is kidnapped? And it could be, okay, maybe we'll do this, and then maybe I'll throw a grenade at his head, maybe all this, maybe all that. And you explore these kinds of scenarios because it's the absolute last thing that a military wants is for a soldier to be taken hostage. And it's a very, as you can see, it's an absolute, political shit show. And it's something that can, as we already know, can lose you the war. And it gives them a tremendous amount of leverage over you. So yeah, but you also have to remember this is very against like the nature of the soldiers. The soldiers are, their initial reaction is going to be to try to save the people. It's very, very difficult to shoot your friend, even if he's being kidnapped. Okay, even if you think like, okay, well, we have to do this because he's going to get tortured, it's still extremely hard. So I can imagine these kinds of situations, right, whereby you'll have practiced a hostage taking many, many times, And so I could imagine them running through, that scenario as well as part of another 500 scenarios that you're running through all the time, but again, it's to say that it's like it's not in the IDF handbook, shall we say, right? Every IDF soldier gets a little handbook with the kind of the code of ethics of the IDF. So it's definitely not one of those fundamental principles. And anybody who joins a fighting unit, anybody who joins an infantry unit has done that basically voluntarily. People want to go and serve in these units. It's a massive source of pride for many families. And so they join knowing that this is the reality. But again, it's as I kind of mentioned before, 30% of all deaths in the military are friendly fire. Okay, so it's very, very hard for me to say, oh, that's there were 200 people that were killed from friendly fire during October 7th, right? That wouldn't surprise me. To say, oh, that one out of that 200, that was the Hannibal directive, and that wasn't. It was obviously a whole massive manner of chaos, as it is. It's absolute chaos. You think that war is a quiet thing. It's not. It's very, very loud. It's very confusing. It's completely disarming. You can't,
And yeah, I mean, we've talked about. Well, first of all, thank you, Bonnie, for a super chat. We've talked about the sort of journalists asking questions, and yeah, generally the sort of the way people look at this as like sort of
joke.
Yeah, I mean, again, even this idea of Hannibal directive, and again, we don't know, but like again, the fact that you would look at October 7, you look at more than 1,000 people that were killed by Hamas, hundreds of hostages taken. Hamas was or sort of was in Israel for not just like on October 7 for like few hours and then went home. It took days until basically Hamas was completely gone out of Israel. Like it was a problem, and the fact that you would look at it and just and blame IDF for maybe failing in some cases or sort of not having the perfect sort of like omniscient response to like every single scenario that happened. Like again, it's like hundreds of single scenarios that soldiers are involved in. You have sort of with incomplete information. I mean, again, we can, after the war or sort of, we can look at October 7 and what went wrong on the Israeli side. We have covered it many times. But the fact that you would like, the blame is now on
the
Israel.
blame is on the Israelis. It's pathetic. Absolutely pathetic, right? But I also just want to explain, like I have a keyring that I've used for the past like 20 years. It's a keyring and it's got like a message engraved on it, and I use this every single day. And that keyring was made by the family of a soldier who I knew who died in a training accident, right? And so these things stay with you, right? They don't. So if somebody has killed somebody from friendly fire, believe me, that person is suffering. Okay, they didn't. It must feel absolutely horrific, horrendous. And so the idea that just the Israelis would be able to shoot their own soldiers like the Japanese army, right? They would shoot their wounded civilian. They would shoot their wounded soldiers so they wouldn't go back on the, so they wouldn't demoralize the civilians. It's really not like that at all. One of the, if you're experiencing an invasion, one of the objectives would be to prevent hostage taking in all scenarios. And if you're a fighting unit with a bunch of commandos, then I could potentially see that you would shoot them, because it would be, imagine that. It's either you shoot him, you put the soldier out of his misery, or he's held in a cave in Syria for 50 years. It's just, it's like obvious.
Yeah. And again, this whole sort of, when we cover sort of Israel and what's going on, it really, you can really see how much the philosophy in the West sucks currently, and sort of the
Yeah.
only reason why we are able to get away with it sort of currently is we still sort of benefit from the past, like good philosophy,
Right.
it's sort of structures that were set in, the productivity that is right now in the West. But if we
Mm,
ever like actually experience any sort of issues, uh this is going like
mm,
it's going to be problematic. And whenever there is sort of a crisis, we see it. When
mm,
COVID happened, the response was terrible. And if we ever see, I mean, 2008 crisis, I mean, go to any sort of crisis that
mm,
happened, all of them are handled
mhm,
terribly. And now, and we are not even talking about well, we can even talk about actual wars. Iraq, Afghanistan, you can go one after the other, all of them handled terrible,
mm,
because again, we simply don't have the philosophy that sort of built the Western civilization, that built the Western nations. And we will
mm.
suffer from it until well,
Sure.
hopefully we won't uh, have to decline completely before we see
Mm.
some better light. Um,
Yeah, but it's interesting because I feel that the problem is that, like, in the West, people fundamentally don't understand. They fundamentally just don't understand. I think the enemy is really part of this deeply ingrained problem inside of them. When you appease a dictator, it he hates you for it. You know, when you appease a dictator, he'll show you nothing but contempt. You have to be forceful, and you have to um eh, you know make him capitulate to your will. So when you appease, when you make concessions, when you understand, when you listen to these savages' problems, right? And you say, oh, what have we done that's contributed to the situation? You saw a lot of that after 9/11. A lot of Americans were like, oh my God, why do they hate us so much? They hate us because you're successful and they're savages, right? Same thing with October 7th. They're savages. And that's it. There's really not much more you need to think about it. Nothing that you did wrong, just that they're savages who want to kill Jews. That's it. It's a very simple, understand that. It's not complicated. So if that is the case, the army is paid by me, by the civilians, and we have put you in charge of defending our rights, and you have to do it. You don't have any other option. You absolutely have to destroy our enemies. It's not like something like, oh yeah, maybe we'll destroy the enemies. No, you have an obligation to destroy the enemies of the people. You have an obligation to destroy those who are trying to destroy the people that you're protecting. It's Is that not the case? Is that not the purpose of the army? What are you, a glorified police force with a couple of nice toys? That's not what won our wars. What won our wars were imposing sieges and being overwhelmingly forceful. That's it. We understood because they put us on death ground. They put us literally in the situation where we didn't know if we were going to make it, right? When that's a sobering experience. So I think that we've definitely forgot it. Definitely forgot that. Let's
Someone
remember
said,
a little bit of Israeli history, by the way.
yeah,
None of the
uh,
war, none of the wars None of the wars that we fought were pretty. Take a good, hard, long look at what war is and think, let it really penetrate what it is.
someone says the West is not monolithic. There's everything from 5-point Calvinists to 200 gender Joe Bidens with fentanyl. Well, you'll learn much more about the world when you realize these two are just two sides of the same sort of mystic coin: rejection of reason, rejection
Hmm.
of Western civilization. These are not different fundamentally, and both of those sort of keep the current sort of world, or sort of thinking of the Western world,
Yeah.
how it is. And uh, unless something changes, which again I think can only be done with the Ayn Rand's philosophy of objectivism, which I don't
Mhm.
mention uh, that much, so I'll try to do it more. I recommend checking it out. I mean, I'd recommend checking out Philosophy Who Needs It today. We'll
Yeah.
recommend a different book
I
every
also
episode.
may I also recommend How to Think About Innocence in War, which is a great article, I think, by Onkar Ghate. I really appreciate that line of thinking. So very, very clear, very, very direct. If you don't have time to read Nothing Less Than Victory, I highly recommend this, investing this 15 minutes.
So, How to Think About Innocence in War, you can, that's from Ayn Rand Institute, so you'll most likely be able to find it on their website. Haven't read that one specifically, but
Oh, you
I
must.
liked everything I've read from Ankur Gaita so far, so
Mm,
I would recommend it. With that, Alex, any last... oh, I
mm.
think someone was asking you if you like Caroline Glick.
Yeah, sure. I like her very much. Yeah, she's great. I really enjoyed her. She used to have a kind of a right wing satire show back in the day. It was called Latma. I really enjoyed that. That was some very, very, very good satire. And it's funny because she was very much, I would say, an adversary almost of Bibi. Very, very, very critical of him and his appeasement of Obama. And now she seems to have, come round and she's licking his butt a little bit, but fair enough. Okay, that's your thing. Yeah, so yeah, I recommend to everybody reading Nothing Less Than Victory, and I also recommend the Betronistim and the Alma Center as well to understand what's happening with the war. Important. These are important sources to read every day. The IDSF.
And people can also like, share, and subscribe if you want more people to sort of be on the same page here. And
Mhm.
also let us know in the comments how this live stream went. I'm trying a different software and I want to see. The software is
Mhm.
much better, so I hope it also comes out well on the stream. We'll also be
Mhm.
back tomorrow with another episode of the Daily Objective and the reality show. Until then, thank you, everybody, and bye bye.
Bye bye.